Hello guys, Greg back with another video. So today I'm doing the top 20 affordable fragrances for men. Now obviously affordable for some people isn't affordable for others, so for the purposes of this video, affordable means anything that I can find in the UK for £50 or under for 100ml. £50 is around sort of 65 euros, around 70 US dollars. A lot of the fragrances in this list will retail for more than that, but they can be found on discount sites and with vouchers for less than £50. So before I crack on with the list, I'm just going to quickly mention two honourable mentions. Both of these are great fragrances, but they're not readily available, not really easy to find, and that's why they've been left off. And the first one we've got is 24 Gold by Scent Story. Probably imagine most of you will have heard of this. A great value fragrance. It's a woody, amber, vanilla fragrance with a little bit of oud in there. And the second one is from Rassasi, and this is La Ukawarm, which essentially is a clone of Tuscan leather. So two really great, cheap fragrances, and they're the two honourable mentions. So on with the actual list. This is not in any order whatsoever. I'm just going to grab a fragrance and talk about it. So first one that I've got in front of me is from Chanel, and this is Blur de Chanel, and this is the EDT version of the fragrance, which I much prefer to the EDP. And again, as I mentioned, with a combination of using a cashback site and a coupon, I got this for less than £50, which is great value for this. And it's all about sort of, I think, four key notes really in this fragrance. For me, it's ginger, lemon, grapefruit and incense, and it's just a really great all-round fragrance. Works for pretty much any occasion. That's Blur de Chanel. And next up we've got another one from Chanel. I could have picked any from this family, but I chose this one because it's my favourite. So this is Allure Homme Edition Blanche, and as I said, Allure Homme or Allure Homme Sport, any of them could have been in this list. But this one is one of those fragrances that I find is very easy to detect individual notes, which I quite like. If you're someone that likes to analyse fragrances, this one you'll be able to do that. You'll get lemon, you'll get vetiver, you'll get tonka and musk and vanilla, and there's also pink pepper, which is a really great note and one that you can pick out. And people say that this one smells like sort of a lemon cream pie, and I think that's a very good description because it really does. Now, like some of the other, or all of the other Chanel concentrates, this has been rebranded recently as an eau de parfum. I don't know whether they've been reformulated. I'm really not sure, but just worth bearing that in mind. So that's Allure Homme Edition Blanche. Next up, this is one this was actually my signature scent in 1998, 99, and I fell out of love with it for a lot of years, but I've kind of rediscovered it, and it's been around for must be over 20 years now, and it's DC Pour Homme from Issey Miyake. Not sure how many times this one's been reformed. This is a 2006 version, and all I can say is that this version's great. But I think it's one that probably has suffered with some reform. So look into that a little bit more if you might want to sort of purchase this one. But there's two things or two notes that make this one great for me, and they're a bit unusual. It's got a note called yuzu in here, which is it's a Japanese fruit, which is kind of similar to grapefruit, and it smells bittersweet, and it smells a bit floral. And then the other really strange note in here, which I love, is blue lotus, and that's kind of hard to describe how that smells, but I'd say it's like an airy floral kind of smell. But absolutely love that one. As I said, I fell out of love with it, but now I really, back to wearing it. I just think it's a masterpiece of a fragrance. Next up, this is the one that was actually #1 in Base Note's recent poll of top 500 perfumes of the century so far. It's from Hermès, and this one is Terre d'Hermès. Now, I've actually got the Parfum version here, which you won't find for under £50, but the EDT version you certainly will, and they're equally as good in my opinion. Now, Terre, as you can see on the bottle there, that's the French word for earth. And a lot of people have described this fragrance as smelling like an orange that's been rolled in earth, and I think that's a really good description. There's more to this. It's a woody fragrance, it's spicy, there's some grapefruit in here which mixes with that orange to give it some fruitiness, but this one just smells of pure class. And next up we have, this is one of my personal favourites of all time, in my top 3 I think, and this is Dior Homme, and this is just a perfect mix of powdery iris and cocoa. Now this is the current formulation I have here. I do also have the the original as well. And what I'll say to you, if you're kind of thinking about looking for a vintage, the vintage for me outperforms the current version in terms of projection and longevity, but I actually prefer the smell of this current version. I think it took the original and just ironed out and smoothed out all those rough edges, and this one's pretty much as close to perfection as you're going to get for me. And since we're talking about my all-time favourites, I couldn't miss this one out. From Dior, again, this is Fahrenheit. And I think probably every guy at some point or another has smelt this one, and it's definitely a love-hate kind of fragrance. What I will say with this one is it has a lot of people talk about vintages and reforms. In my opinion, in my experience, anything that I have tried from 1988 up until early 2012 has smelt fantastic. The versions after 2012, they've kind of toned down that petroleum accord, which makes this fragrance what it is, and ramped up the vanilla, and it's more of a vanilla fragrance now, and it's just not what it used to be. Just thought of something. Actually, if you're interested in finding a bit more out, go and Google Raiders of the Lost Scent Fahrenheit, and there's a blog that will give you loads of information about all of the different versions that have been tested on that blog. It's a great blog, not just for Fahrenheit, but for other fragrances that have suffered reforms. It analyses all of the different versions and gives you a lot of info and makes you kind of decide whether it's worth forking out extra money for a vintage of a fragrance. So check that out. But that's Dior Fahrenheit. And next up we have, what I think this is number 14. And this is from Dolce Gabbana, and this one is Dolce Gabbana Pour Homme. This is the vintage Italian version. Any version that's got this sticky label on the front you can't go wrong with. They're all fantastic. The current version, which just has the writing actually within the glass, is a really poor imitation of this original fragrance. It's not a poor fragrance. If I smelt it in its own right, I'd probably think it was very pleasant. But it doesn't, you know, it's one of the worst reformulations I've come across in terms of resembling the original. So just be aware of that. But this one's it's an aromatic fougere. It's got lavender, tobacco, citrus, great sandalwood in here, but just a brilliant, brilliant fragrance. And then next up, this one is from Armani, and this is Armani Code. And you'll see what I've got here is the special blend, which is a limited edition. Came out in 2015. Essentially, it's the same fragrance, but I just find that the tonka bean is ramped up in here. I mean, tonka is the dominant note in the original Armani Code as well, but it's just a little bit more prominent in this version. And this one's one of the best-selling men's fragrances for probably the last 15 years, and for good reason. It's a real versatile, great-smelling fragrance. Next, I'm going to have to just lean round because I've got another table here. Let's pick this one. Another one from Dolce & Gabbana. This one is The One again. And this is the new, or 2015 EDP. And I think I was probably the first person to come across this back in, it was August of 2015. Smells pretty much identical to the EDT. The difference with this one is it is a sort of richer, thicker version, which you'd expect from a EDP. But for me, it doesn't smell different, it doesn't really perform different. It lasts about 4 hours on my skin, which is pretty poor. The only thing I will say in its favour is the first hour of projection is pretty good on this, but after that, not great. Having said that, I'm not that bothered because it smells so good. I don't mind reapplying that fragrance. It's just a great smelling fragrance. And talking of great smelling fragrances, another one of my 10 out of 10 all-time favourites, definitely the best tea-based fragrance I've come across, Moogly Cologne 2. Thought this one was going to be discontinued, but it's actually still readily available, and it's around £40 for 100ml in the UK, which is crazy value for something this good. But this one's it's got a lot of myrrh in here, but it's dominated by tea, violet leaf and cinnamon, and it's a very, very calming fragrance, I find. A lot of people complain about performance on that one, but actually for me it's above average. Lasts a long time and I can smell it all day, so I've got no complaints with performance on that. Next one we have from the house of Guerlain. This is L'Instant de Guerlain. This is the EDT version. There's also an Extreme EDP. They've both got prominent chocolate and patchouli notes, but this EDT has got a very noticeable citrus in here, which lightens it up, freshens the fragrance a bit. And I always say it's worth owning both. Have the EDT, this one for daytime, and have the sort of darker EDP version for evening wear. And next, we're rushing through these. We have the best-selling fragrance, men's fragrance of the past, I guess 5-6 years since it was released. You'll all have heard of this, Paco Rabanne 1 Million. And I've got here, you'll probably be able to see, I don't want to show my hair, the absolutely gold version. This is a Parfum version of the original, but essentially the smell is the same. And all of the versions of this, the performance is nuclear. It's a great clubbing scent, this one. That's what it's best for. The only problem with this one is everyone seems to own it, and you're going to smell like everyone else. If you want to be unique, that's not the fragrance for you. And the next one, I'm going to make a big statement now and say, in my opinion, this is the best men's designer fragrance ever released. It's not my favourite, it's probably not even in my top 10 favourites, but as a piece of work, this is a complete masterpiece. And it's from Jean-Paul Gaultier, and it's called Lamar. Now, spoke about reformulations on Fahrenheit. Again, this one, and I'm not an expert on reforms on this, but the current formulation of this is really a poor imitation of the original. So I'll go online and find out a little bit more about when reformulations took place, how you can detect which bottle is a vintage and which isn't, because it's not worth buying the current version in my opinion. This one's all about, for me it's lavender and mint, really, the two things. There's and also vanilla. Vanilla, of course, is a big note in this one. And it's one of the strongest, most longest lasting fragrances that I've ever come across, and as I said, it's just an absolute masterpiece. Next up we have, from the house of Thierry Mugler, another 10 out of 10 fragrance for me. This is Pure Havane, and this one I've described many times before. I've said it smells like tobacco with cherry vanilla fudge, and it's a very warming, comforting fragrance. A fragrance that you want to sit next to a big fireplace in a warm jumper and just sit there and chill out, and that's the kind of vibe I get from that. And the next one's another one from Thierry Mugler, although this is a very different type of fragrance from Thierry Mugler. This is Moogly Cologne, which is really a fresh, sort of out of the shower type of smell. This is a great alternative to Creed's original Vetiver, if you've come across that fragrance. It's, I know, this one's £30 for 100 ml in the UK, and it's got three of my favourite notes. It's actually the top part of this fragrance is really dominated by two of those, neroli and bergamot, and then it dries down to a great musky base. I have reviewed this one. I'll leave a review below in the description, as I will with a couple of others that I reviewed. Next up, this one is marketed for men, but actually, in my opinion, it's definitely unisex, and it smells far better on my wife than it actually does on me. But either way, it's one of the best value fragrances you're going to come across, and it's Van Cleef & Arpels, and this one's called Midnight in Paris. Now, this is the EDP version. There's also an EDT. I don't get a great amount of difference. They're both fine. Don't worry too much about it. Gets compared to another great fragrance called Bulgari Black. They both share a kind of rubbery leather accord. There's also both have a really strong vanilla note. And I'd say this one's an artistic fragrance. It's a breath of fresh air, really, from some of the sort of rubbish that gets pumped out these days. The EDT version of this, for 125 ml, you can find for £16 in the UK, which is crazy value. The EDP is a little bit harder to find and a bit more expensive, but you can find it if you look. So, take a breath. 4 more bottles to go. Next up, one of my favourite summer fragrances. This one, every time I smell this, it transports me to summertime. It lifts my mood. And this one is from Versace, and it's called Man Au Fresh. And it's an aquatic citrus fragrance. It develops, it becomes woody, spicy, and then dries down to a really great musky base, this one. Very distinctive note in here called starfruit, which kind of smells like a mix of, I guess, melon, pear and apple, and it's a real compliment getter. It's one of those fragrances that it's very hard to dislike. Even if you don't love it, you're not going to get any bad feedback. Everyone's going to generally think you smell pleasant. And the same goes for the next one, which is Perry Ellis 360 Degrees Red. Now, I could have included this, or I could have included Acqua di Gio from Armani, because they're very, very similar, but I opted for this. This one's taken Armani di Gio and has toned down the aquatic notes that are in that fragrance, but then added some cinnamon, which gives it a bit of spiciness, and it just makes this one a little bit more interesting, I think. Again, like Man Au Fresh, you're not going to get anyone that doesn't like this one. Generally, it's just very pleasant. And again, I've reviewed that one, so I'll leave a link down below for my review. So 2 fragrances to go, and this one is another one of my all-time favourites, another 10 out of 10 for me. Yves Saint Laurent's Rive Gauche. This is a classic barbershop type fragrance. It smells very mature, but it doesn't smell dated, and that's quite an important thing to remember with this one. Again, I've done a full review on this one, which I will leave a link to below, but absolutely superb fragrance. And we're at the end, we finally got there, the 20th affordable fragrance for men. From Yves Saint Laurent, this is La Nuit de l'Homme. This is actually a limited edition version. I think it's only available in the UK. It's just the bottle that's different, same fragrance. But if compliments are your thing, this is the fragrance for you. It's, I mean, look no further. People seem to just love this one. You constantly get great feedback when I wear this. The magic part of this for me personally is the blending of 3 particular notes. It's cardamom, caraway and lavender. And the cardamom and the caraway give it kind of a warm, spicy, resinous feel, but the lavender then gives it an airy, calming, relaxing vibe. But it's a great release from YSL. That is La Nuit de l'Homme. So there you go. That's the end of the list, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it gave you kind of some ideas. If you're looking for a new fragrance, please do comment and give a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, please do. Thanks for watching. I am going to be doing a lot more videos moving forward, so keep an eye out for those. I'll see you all soon. Cheers.